Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for our Train the Trainer on how to support students with financial aid award letters. I'm Darlene Hoagland, College Success Manager for Utah Jazz, and joining me today is College Access Manager for San Jose and Carla Santiago, Director of Four-Year College Success. Before we get started, we just want to share that this event will be recorded. If you have questions, we invite you to go ahead and use the chat, and that we will provide the information from this presentation in an email after this training. And included in that email, you will receive a copy of the slide deck, a video recording, common terms for financial aid award letters, our comparison tool, and a flyer for upcoming events. Okay, so I know we have quite a few folks joining us from the community, so we want to start off today's training by sharing a bit of what 10,000 Degrees is. As the leading equity-focused scholarship provider and college success nonprofit in California, our work is grounded in providing support to students from low-income backgrounds to and through college. The impact of our work expands across 8 Bay Area counties and the state of Utah, with services provided to over 16,000 students and their families. Now let's jump into the goals for the day. So today we will go over how to read and compare financial aid offer letters, how to lead strength-based and student-centered conversations with students and families, and to learn ways to reduce and adjust the cost of attendance. And then lastly, we will go over the tools to decode financial aid offer letters.
All right, so now we're going to be going over offer letters and just kind of what that looks like. So as of right now, when they receive their offer letter, students have applied for college, applied for their financial, for FAFSA or the California Dream Act, submitted required documents to their school, applied for scholarships, got it at some admitted decisions or admission decisions, and have received some of the unofficial offer letters from those schools that they've been admitted. And then the next step would be for them to commit to a college. So some frequently asked questions is, what is the financial offer letter? So it is a document that lists the cost to attend a given school plus any financial aid that the school is offering the student. Where can a student view their offer letter? Offer letters can be viewed in their student school portal, in their financial aid, in the financial aid section, college emails, and sometimes the letters are mailed as well. Offer letter is final. Students receive an unofficial offer letter after being admitted. Students might get verified, might have missing documents, might have like a final budget, and other factors may slightly change a student's offer. So a student's final offer letter is given around June and July. And is this letter the same every year? So the student will receive a new offer letter every year. And this again changes based on impact on financial offers in the future. So continuing with some questions, when do students receive their unofficial offer letter? For four-year schools, shortly after they are accepted. For community colleges around May and June. For this year, though, we have seen some challenges, We know that financial aid applications, submission summaries aren't being sent out to colleges until early mid-March due to the FAFSA delay. So the closer to April 2nd students apply, the less likely they'll get an accurate offer letter. So some of our best practices is to have students apply to their financial aid application as soon as possible, if possible. Even though the application closes April 2nd, we encourage them for students to do it as soon as possible. This gives schools time to process apps, conduct any verification if needed. This will provide the student an accurate offer letter. And then also some best practices is also to host some offer letter events or meetings with your students, probably late April. And so we're gonna kind of bring it back and do a knowledge check. So what of the following is false? A, unofficial offers may change. B, an offer letter and award letter are the same thing. C, offers are viewable in the student financial aid portal, and students will receive the same aid every year. And so I will give you some time to write your answer in the chat. Yeah. All right. I'm seeing some D's. All right. Love that. Yeah, awesome. Yes. So D, students will receive the same aid every year is false. So now what's on an offer letter? So we're going to be going through that as well. So just as a best practice for offer letter language and terms, just being aware that many terms in these process are sometimes overwhelming and hard to grasp. So as a best practice is never assume that the family or student knows the term, and explain in depth what everything means and provide examples in different scenarios when possible. So what types of aid may you see on the offer letter? So you'll see gift aid, which is money that the student does not have to pay back. Money that students can earn through campus jobs. They must work in order to receive this money. And loans, this is borrowed money that does need to get paid back after graduation. And so we set some examples on the bottom of each term. So what are listed expenses? So the cost of attendance is the total cost of attending a college. This amount includes additional college-related expenses that are not covered by tuition and fees. This includes meal plans, technology, transportation, social life, to name a few. So some terms to know is fixed direct cost. This is a fixed direct cost is a non-negotiable. This appears on the school's billing system and typically is charged on a specific date, and that is tuition. That is a non-negotiable amount that the student needs to pay. Also, flexible direct cost. This flexible direct cost can be reduced based on a student's preference and need. This does appear in the school's billing system and typically are charged on a specific deadline. This is meal plans and room and board. And then flexible indirect cost. This is a cost that can be reduced based on a student's preference and need. This doesn't necessarily appear on the school billing, or it doesn't appear in the school billing. And also this indirect cost typically comes throughout the year. So that looks like transportation, personal care, social life, technology. So did you know if a student has an outstanding balance on their school billing system after their financial aid has been dispersed, they may be able to create a scheduled payment plan directly with their college. This is a good way to reduce the amount of loans that students take out, also stress. And so we always encourage students to always talk directly with their billing office to review if this is an option for them. So we're going to be covering loans. So some of the best practices is that it is an option for students if they need it. It's about making a knowledgeable and well-informed decision. So when advising students, letting them know that they don't need to accept the whole loan, that the student can accept portions of their loan throughout the academic year. Also, to think long term is taking out loans every year sustainable. And then also a tool is using the FAFSA loan repayment simulator to get an understanding of what payments may look like in the future. So some loan terms and just some that your student should know or for you to let them know is to help them understand the different types of loans. There is a subsidized loan. So this interest does not accumulate while enrolled. Repayment begins 6 months after graduation or program completion, or if the student drops to less than part-time. That's also similar to unsubsidized loan. The only difference is that the interest does accumulate while enrolled. Again, repayment begins 6 months after graduation or program completion. And then the Paris Plus loan, repayment begins once loan is fully dispersed. The student may request deferment while enrolled at least half time or for the additional 6 months after the student graduates or completes their program, or leaves school or drops below half time enrollment. So other loan options that students might see, if they're going into a UC and CSU, they might see the Dream Loan. For UC's privates and out of states, they might see a college university student loan. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about work study. So work study, also DSIG, which is the California Dreamers Incentive Grant. This is something for them to know is during the application process, students can express interest in work study, DSIG or DSIG on their FAFSA or CADA or California Dream Act application. We always encourage them to say yes. If the student gets offered work study, they don't need to accept it, but they'll have that option. If work study is not initially offered, students can talk with their financial aid office to request to request that they're considered. And again, the California Dreamer Service Incentive Grant. This is for Cal Grant B recipients who submitted the CADA and can be considered for one of the 1,667 service incentive grants of up to $4,500 per year. And some benefits of work study, it's flexible with school holiday calendar. They are also flexible around students' class schedule. The academics are priority for all the positions that are offered for work study. And then also they're on some of them are on campus, and students can access it without having to use additional transportation. Some items to review with your student when talking about work study is that students need to work to receive the money. The student is responsible for finding the campus finding the job on campus, and also letting them know that they can be competitive. So the best time to look for these jobs is during the summer or when they're going to orientation. Sometimes there's tabling outside, letting them know about these jobs opportunities. And then if the student wants to, they can advocate for to their employer for more hours beyond their approved and allocated work study amount. So what other financial aid, what are other financial aid opportunities? So there are emergency fundings at college campuses. This is campus specific. So it's checking out financial aid offices, special population, cultural centers, offer letters, cultural centers, offices on campus, and staff and faculty sponsors. And then also there are relocation grants. This is for smaller private schools. An example is like some of the snow schools can sometimes provide grants for purchasing winter clothing, as well as there are grants for technology. And then filling the need. So the students fills the need with financial aid, including grants, loans, work study, and scholarships, kind of what we just went over. So students will get the cost of attendance, and that will be subtracted with the financial aid offer letter that they received, and then they will get an estimate of what the student will have to pay out of pocket with their family. All right, we're going to step back and do a knowledge check. So what of the following is false about work study? A, students show interest on their financial aid application. Students are automatically saved a job. C, work study / on-campus jobs have capped hours for students. D, work study / on-campus are more flexible with students' class and holiday schedules. All right, I'm seeing a lot of B's. Okay. Love that everybody was paying attention. Awesome. Yes, B, definitely. B is false. Students have to apply for each role and have to find their own jobs on campus. You have another knowledge check. So what of the following is false about loans? Unsubsidized loans begin to accrue interest immediately. B, DREAM Act students can qualify for subsidized loans. C, students have to take out the whole loan being offered. D, subsidized loans don't accrue interest until after students graduate. So now I'm gonna give you some time to answer. All right, I see C's, A's. All right, so the answer is C. That is false. Students don't have to take the whole loan that is being offered. They can take different amounts depending on what they need. There's another one. Which of the following is not listed on an offer letter? A, loans and grants. B, cost of attendance. C, scholarships. D, enrollment fees and deposits. Okay, I'm seeing C's, D's, D's. All right, the answer is actually D. So some of the schools do not always include the enrollment fees. But there are some private schools that do include enrollment fees. Thank you all. Send it on to Darlene.
Thank you. So now that we've learned quite a bit about what is an offer letter, we're going to go over some troubleshooting items on offer letters and common challenges that may come up along the way. So what to do when a student hasn't received an offer letter yet? In this situation, we start by having students double check that they've completed a couple of steps. So this includes making sure that they've submitted all missing documents, completed any to-do items or holds that they may have on their college student portal. And it's also important to note that financial aid portals are sometimes different than the student portal. Next is for students to check with Web Grants for Students to ensure that nothing is pending and that the correct school of attendance is listed. Equally important is to check that the full legal names match all of the forms that have been submitted. And this includes the FAFSA and California DREAM Act, and any other forms that may have been submitted to the school. Now, for students who have submitted a California DREAM Act application, it's important to confirm that all AB 540 forms have been submitted. And then the last item is to double check whether the student listed their school on the FAFSA and the California DREAM Act form. And then after all of the double checking has happened and a student still hasn't received an offer letter, in this situation, it's the best practice is to call the school's financial aid office and request the status of the offer letter. Now, what if a student doesn't see their Cal Grant on an offer letter? In this scenario, notice whether you're looking at the unofficial or official offer letter, because it can look a little different on either one. In an unofficial letter, the Cal Grant might appear as state grant or school name grant. In an official offer letter, you'll see both the state grant and Cal Grant specifically listed. Another scenario that may come up is financial aid verification. Financial aid verification is when the college or university asks for additional documents to verify the information that's been reported on the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application. And in this situation, a student will know if they are being verified, and they'll know this because they'll receive a to-do item on their college student portal or their financial aid portal. And it's important to note that sometimes the school will only send an email to the new college email that gets created by the school. And as for the information that gets verified, it's the income that was reported on the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act. And this is done by submitting tax transcripts and or W-2s or non-tax filer forms. Another item that gets verified is family size, and this is done by completing a form that's provided by the school. And then the last item that gets verified is dependency status, and this is verified by also completing a form provided by the school. When it comes to financial aid verification, the best practice is to have students check their portals and check them often, to check all of their emails, both the email they use to submit all of their forms and the new college email that is created for them. Lastly, if a student needs more time in submitting the verification document, or they anticipate delays with completing their to-do items, the best practice is for them to contact the financial aid office and request an extension. Again, as part of the verification, it could mean that students may need to retrieve a tax transcript. As we said earlier, many students, this may be their first time learning about these words, and tax transcript is one of them. Many students may not know what a tax transcript is. So a tax transcript is a tax document that shows the financial information for the requested tax year. And it's a summary of personal and financial information. So how does a student order this document? Students are able to order a tax transcript online, by mail, or by phone, and it usually takes about 5 to 10 business days to arrive. As you'll see on the slide, we have also included the link to the website. where a student can order a tax transcript. And just as a reminder, everyone will be receiving a copy of this slide deck after the presentation, so know that you can refer back to it and access the link that way. And then for retrieving tax transcript, our best practice is to encourage students to order one every year, so they have one ready just in case they get verified. And this is particularly important for our students who have applied for California Dream Act. All right, so here we have a little example of what a student portal will look like. This is just an example. It can vary from school to school. But the student portal is a very important location for students, because the student portal will house all important information, including admission status, any to-do items. We talked about those financial aid to-do items. They may be posted here. And then most importantly, this will also be where offer letters will be living. When it comes to student portals, it's important to remember that each school that the student applies to will have their own portal. So when it comes to double checking all of the portals, they will have to make sure to check each portal for each campus that they've applied to. And since the portal is where the school will post to-do items, it's important to, again, remind students to check it and check it often. Okay, so here's another scenario. Another scenario that you may come across when supporting your students and their financial aid offer letters is one where the student is being charged as an international student or an out-of-state student. And in this situation, one possibility is that the student may be eligible, maybe AB 540 eligible. And if the student is AB 540 eligible, they could be exempt from paying out-of-state or non-resident tuition. And in this case, if a student is AB 540 eligible, they will need to complete the AB 540 form. What this form does is that it ensures that the school considers the student for in-state tuition. Now, we want to share that that CSAC has embedded the AB 540 form and the questions within the California Dream Act application. So it's important to remember that once the application is submitted, to encourage students to confirm that their financial aid offices receive their AB 540 responses. And then lastly, a little reminder is that if at any point a student switches schools, that the student will need to submit their AB 540 questions to the campus that they will be switching to. And then once the form is completed, the college and university will still verify the AB 540 eligibility. And a note to keep in mind for our out-of-state students is that many states have financial aid programs and processes for undocumented students. So it's important to remember to explore those programs because you never know, your student may be eligible for something. All right, so change in circumstances. We understand that circumstances change, and some of these circumstances can include new medical expenses, a loss in employment, or even a change in employment. And these changes can be communicated to the financial aid office at any point in the academic year, but it's important that the student have a financial aid application on file in order to receive adjustments on their offer letter. If there is a change in circumstance, a student will need to submit what's called a letter of appeal to their financial aid office for these change in circumstances to be considered. Now let's move on to negotiation. It's important to keep in mind that an offer letter is just an offer letter. which means that there are options that the student can think about and request of their financial aid office. So they can, some of the items that they can ask for is items that we've already mentioned. They can ask for any additional institutional aid. They can ask for or request more work study, and they can ask for more subsidized loans in order to avoid the Parent Plus loan. Most importantly, with the negotiation part is that it will be up to the student to take initiative in contacting their financial aid office and practice those self-advocacy skills. Okay, so when advising, in our role in advising and supporting students through this process, we want to remember to be supportive and aware and mindful of the students' choices and interests in their post-secondary education, such as technical training and certifications. We also want to remember that our students want to walk out of the conversations with a general understanding and common financial aid types and terms, and of course, costs. Another item to remember, and this is a tough one when it comes to advising, is that as we're going through this process with them, to remember that sometimes their best fit is their dream. Sometimes the best fit of school may be their dream school, and sometimes it's not, and that's okay. In being present with our students, we want to remember to ask guiding questions, ask questions that can help them figure out their choices and what school and what services and the types of services that the schools may be offering them in order for them to achieve their career and academic goals. Some of these questions can include, like, how do you plan to repay your school debt? Are there any orgs or features that the schools offer that can support you in your academic success? And then lastly, and this one may be tough for us because, you know, we definitely want to make sure that our students are making the best choices. But we want to remember and be mindful of our educator bias and be aware of our facial expressions and body language, because that could impact how we show up for our students. And we want to make sure that they're making knowledgeable and well-informed decisions. Okay, so next steps. Looking ahead, we know that changes are coming, but this is a general overview of what is coming up for our students. And it's also important to have these conversations so our students may have that in mind of what to expect next. And for many of them, it's going to be important keeping in mind all of the important deadlines that will be coming up. So for example, our high school seniors in May, they will be able to accept their offer of admissions, and they will also be able to pay for their orientation, housing, and enrollment deposit fees. In June, our community college transfer students will also be able to accept their school's offer of admission, and they will also be able to pay their orientation and housing and enrollment deposit fees. Come June and July, students will be able to review and accept their official offer letter. And at this point, we want to encourage our students to remember, write it down, put it on a calendar, to take note of the tuition, financial aid disbursements and tuition deadlines. Because come September and August and September, that's when tuition deadlines come up. So we want to make sure that students are aware of that and are on track to be able to pay their tuition and fees before the deadline. Doing so prevents any future challenges that the student may have leading up to their first day of classes. Some of these challenges, if tuition isn't paid on time, they could have holds placed on their account. So it's important to keep these in mind to avoid any future challenges. So Speaking of those upcoming deadlines and payments, while orientation, housing, and enrollment fees are an out-of-pocket expense for students, there are assistance options available to them. So what students can do to request assistance for these is there are different types of assistance. So they can request a waiver for a reduction in fees, or they can request that their payments be deferred to later on, closer to the start of the semester, so they can have their financial aid cover their expenses. And the key here will be for students to practice self-advocacy and speak directly with the admissions office or the billing office to review these options. All right. Now it's time for a quick knowledge check. So which of the following is false about the verification process? Is it A, no longer happening because of the new FAFSA process? B, verified items such as income, family size, and dependency? C, a student won't get an accurate offer letter until all verification is completed? Or D, failing to provide requested verification may lead to losing financial aid? Mm, all right, I'm looking all the answers coming in, and the correct answer is A. Um, it's no longer happening because of the new FAFSA process. So this is false.
Now we're going to be going over reading and comparing offer letters. And so we're going to be taking a look at different offer letters and just knowing what's on them. So here we have the University of San Francisco and a CSU Sonoma or Sonoma State offer letter. And so here, as you can see, they're very different. They have about the same information, but for the University of San Francisco, students will see the estimated cost of attendance, also including tuition and fees, room and board, some of the direct costs and indirect costs that students will are estimated to spend throughout the year. So they will see their in their financial aid offer, they will see the grants and scholarships that they're receiving, and it already adds it up for them, as well as some of the loan options that the student has. Here the student did receive an opportunity for work study. So that's the amount here where it gives them the amount that they would be receiving, and then it tells them the total financial aid offered. As you can see, also this also provides the student with different terms. Again, they're hard to grasp, and so it's really good for them to have an understanding of what everything means. Here it also shows the estimated first year cost. So it gives them a breakdown on what the student will need to pay out of pocket, if they take out loans, what that might look like, as well as what the family at the end of the day or student will have to pay. And if we're looking at the going over the CSU Sonoma offer letter, as you can see, it also breaks it down into the cost of attendance, including tuition, housing, and meals. Again, that will vary depending on what packet the student receives or chooses. Also, it gives them also the grants and scholarships that will help them pay for college, the net cost of what the student will have to pay. And then here, as you can see, the only difference both from the University of San Francisco is that the student did not receive work study. And so they did give them some loan options. Here it breaks it down as what the student would have to pay out of pocket. So family contribution would be 1,404. Again, it gives them a little bit of different data or information of the graduation rates, repayment if they do take out loans, and then just more information on their financial aid office. And so as you can see, they're very different, but have about the same information. And so here we're going to look at an out-of-state offer letter. This is for the University of Hawaii. This is this also calculates the cost of attendance, the estimated family contribution, which is 0. And so it also brings in the initial need that the student will need, and then also it breaks it down on the cost of attendance. Here the student is receiving, if we see a little bit below, their packets, most of the students' packet looks like they're receiving about $29,000 in loans. And so again, this is a very different offer letter than the ones that we just saw beforehand. And it, yeah. And then here is for the University of Utah for an in-state student. Here, as you can see, the estimated cost of attendance, it's provided here, as well as the total aid that they're receiving. It also breaks it down on the unmet need. Here, as you can see, the student did not was not offered loans, but the need still was not met. And then here are also examples of some community college offer letters. Here is also the cost of attendance. It's about the same as the other offer letters that we've seen. Here they put down the direct cost as well. They break it down. Also they add the indirect cost, so an estimate of what the student might be paying throughout the year. Here for the estimated family contribution, here it's 0, but the financial, and it also includes their financial aid awards. And then also the net price, so direct cost plus the indirect cost, it gives them that amount. And then this also includes room and board. And so again, this may vary depending on the college or the student's decision to live on campus or live off campus, or for family. And then also on the right, they also kind of bring it down to how much the student would be paying full-time, if they're half-time, and also things to note. So the Pell Grant amount depends on the units that the student is enrolled in. And so that is also something to note. So here's an example of an AB 540 packet or award letter. This is from the University of Santa Cruz. See here, as you can see, the student's award amount is given to the student. The tuition is $43,860. Here, the student is getting charged out of state or international fees. That could also be the fee that is also named. And so here with the AB 540 affidavit, the student will receive that non-resident, it will receive a non-resident exemption, and then that money is being used to offset that expense. And here the student also is offered the Dreaming University loan, as we talked about them beforehand. And then also here we see that the student did not receive a Cal Grant, but it did, it might also show as a different grant depending on the school. And so as you can see here, it's the UC Santa Cruz grant.
Okay, so now that we've learned how to read an offer letter, we're gonna go over our comparison tool. The comparison tool is what we use to help students make the most informed decision. It helps calculate the fixed and direct costs, the flexible direct costs, and the flexible indirect costs of each offer letter, which is what we've covered along the way. And students will also be able to see how much aid they will be receiving from each institution and the total amount of unmet need that they will still have in the end, which ends up being the out-of-pocket expense. And again, this is a tool that we use to help students and their families see, so they can see the financial benefits of each offer letter. And it makes it easier to compare the letters. And, again, it's as we've seen with the examples we just went over, each letter will look a little bit different. So with that, we're gonna go over, we're gonna look at a couple of examples of offer letters and look at how we can utilize the comparison tool. So this first letter here on the left is from UCLA. So we're gonna make sure to put that into our comparison tool so we can have an idea of what that offer actually looks like for each campus. So looking at the letter, we can see that the fixed direct cost, which is tuition, this again is going to be a fixed cost. So the offer letter shows us that it's $13,239. So we'll plug that into the form. Then we see room and board is listed at 16,667. For this, just a note to keep in mind that it's a flexible direct cost. So the number can vary, it can change depending on the housing situation that the student selects. So it could change depending on, if they choose to live in a double versus a triple versus a quad. So just be mindful that those numbers can change depending on situations. Then we have books and supplies. The estimate here is 1,404. Again, this is a flexible indirect cost, so it can change depending on if a student wants to buy new books versus used books or rent books. Then we have transportation here listed at estimated at 607. Transportation can account for any expenses traveling back home for breaks. And then we have personal expenses, or actually, sorry, we missed one, computer needs. So we want to be mindful that our students may be in need of technology going into their first year. So we want to make sure that we account for all of those expenses in this comparison worksheet, so our students can have an accurate as possible estimate of what their costs are going to be. So we're going to estimate that our student is going to need technology, so we're going to budget $2,000 for that. We also want to be mindful that personal expenses may come up along the way. So we're going to budget $2,000 for that. And our offer letter here gives us an estimate of other additional education costs that may come up. And it's listed here as 4,177. So just something to keep in mind. Again, this is all an estimate, but we want to account for any expenses that may come up. So with that in mind, the total cost of attendance that is estimated for UCLA is $40,093. Right. And with that, so this is kind of just the estimate of cost of attendance. So now that is the number that we want to see how much aid will be able to help cover that. So we're going to move on to grants and scholarships. So looking at the aid portion of the offer letter. Okay. All right. So We see that this offer letter, in this offer letter, the student was um, offered a Pell Grant. So they received $6,495 in Pell Grant. They did not receive FCOG or AB 540, but we do see that they received a Cal Grant. And the Cal Grant that they received is in the amount of $12,570. We also see that that they were offered institutional aid. We see it listed as university grant, and they were offered 5,418 in institutional grants. We also see that they were offered another grant and scholarship of 2,710, bringing their total aid to 27,193. So that is a big number. So now looking at that, comparing to what we started with, it brought the total of unmet need to 12,900. So now we know that there are other options available to students to help supplement and close this gap. So one of those options that we learned about was work study. In this offer letter, we see that the student was offered work study, and they were offered 2,500 worth of work study. So again, it's important to remember that while this is listed in the offer, the student can go ahead and contact their financial aid office and request more. But this is the starting point. So now our total unmet need is 10,400. So now we get to thinking, what are other ways that we can bring that down? So up until this point, we're looking at if the family is able to contribute in any way. In this student's case, the family has agreed to contribute $1,000 for the year. And the student has been working little side jobs, has been working over the summer, and has saved up quite a bit. So they will be contributing $1,000 to their school expenses, leaving that unmet need it's bringing the unmet need to 8,400. So this is where we're at. Now we're gonna take into consideration any loans that may have been offered. So this student was offered student loans. So we see here that they were offered a subsidized loan of 3,500. They were also offered an unsubsidized loan for 2,900. And so with the total aid that they received in loans, they are being offered the total amount of loans that they are being offered is 6,400. So as we learned earlier, this is the amount that's being offered. The student does not have to take the whole amount in loans. So that brings the total unmet need down to $2,000. So this is going to be the total number that the student will be expected to pay out of pocket. Okay. So now this was a UC offer letter. So it says in state. Now we're going to look at an offer letter for a private and out of state school. So now here we're going to look at an offer letter from Marist. So again, we're going to make sure to document each of the offer letters from each campus. And we're going to go through the same process. So we're going to look at the fixed costs. So we see here that tuition and fees is 43,430. Room and board is estimated to be 16,700. Books and supplies, again, thinking about the options that a student has, like buying used books or renting books. So we're going to estimate. We want to take that estimate into consideration. So we're going to estimate that this student will buy used books or will rent them. So we're going to estimate that they're going to need about 1,000 for books and supplies. Similarly, we know that the student is going to need technology for school. So we're going to, still budget for the $2,000 for a computer. Now, transportation. So this is a very important thing to note. So in this offer letter, it wasn't listed as an individual cost as it was in the UCLA offer letter, but it does put them together. It is important to note, though, that with out-of-state students, especially with a campus like Marist that's on the East Coast, those transportation expenses can add up. We know that students want to come home over break, over the holidays. And so those costs can add up, and especially going the long distance. So we want to budget for that as well. So we're estimating that the cost for transportation is going to be $3,000. And accounting for any other expenses that may come up, we want to budget $2,000 for that as well. And we want to make sure to account for any other expenses that may come up along the way. So we're going to budget about $500 for that, bringing the total cost of attendance to $68,630. So again, this is the total cost of attendance, the estimated total cost of attendance. So now we're going to look at all the aid that the student was offered. All right, so we're going to look at grants and scholarships. So we see here that this student was offered the Pell Grant. So they'll be receiving $6,495. They were offered the federal CEOG grant, so they will be receiving $1,000. Then we see that they also received institutional grants. So again, keeping in mind that this is an out-of-state school, so they wouldn't be receiving the Cal Grant or any statewide aid. But they did receive an institutional grant in the amount of $10,000, and they received another grant and scholarship also for the same amount, $10,000. So when in total aid, this student is receiving $27,495. With the total met need at this point of $41,135. So now we're going to see if there's if they were offered any other type of support. So we're going to see if they were offered work study, which I believe they did in this offer letter. Yes, they were offered $3,000 in work study. So we're going to plug that in as well. Yes, thank you. Bringing the total unmet need to 38,135. So again, this is going to be the point where we check in with the student and their families and see if there's going to be any contribution. In this case, we do know that the family and the student are going to be contributing. So we're accounting for the $1,000 from the family and $1,000 from the student. Okay. So now we're sitting at 36,135. So now we're going to look at loans that have been offered. So in this offer letter, we see that the student was offered a subsidized loan and an unsubsidized loan. The amount of the subsidized loan is $3,500 and the unsubsidized loan is $2,000 for a total of $5,500 in loans. Okay. So now we have the estimate of the out-of-pocket costs for this private out-of-state school, which is $30,635. So we see here clearly with the use of this tool. I think this is the beauty of having this. One, we use this tool with our students, and this is the beauty of it, is that it creates a visual what these costs are going to be for the student and their families. Keeping in mind that some of these costs can be flexible with, requesting for more aid, dependent on, the how much the student and the family is able to contribute. So there are many factors to consider for all of these, and we want to account for all costs. I think something to keep in mind that many students and families don't consider is, talking about transportation. Some students may choose to have a car at school, and, accounting for the costs of, upkeep for the car, and gas as well. So accounting for all of those as much as possible as you're working through this worksheet alongside your student. And again, using it as a visual for ultimately for students and families to see what their financial situation is going to be like, especially going into that first year, because we know that, offer letters are offered every year. So just knowing that this is going to be the visual that they can see, so they can see what their out-of-pocket expense is going to be. Ultimately, remembering our educator bias, ultimately the decision for what is going to be the best option for our student is going to come down to our student. So remembering that whatever choice they go with is going to be the best choice, and remembering that we want to celebrate them in those choices as well. All right, so coming back, yeah. So again, this is a tool that we use with our students as we're advising them and reviewing offer letters with them. But we want to make sure to share the wealth. So we have this toolkit available on our website. If you go to our 10,000 Degrees website and you go to student and alumni, you'll go to student and family resources and click on tools. And in here, you will see under financial aid offer letters. Perfect. And then here you'll find the PDF and downloadable printable version of these offer letters of the comparison tool. They are also available in English and Spanish. So they are a very helpful tool, especially when going over it with families. And then again, you're remembering that you will all receive a copy of the slide deck after this presentation.
All right, now we're going to talk about some resources and upcoming events that we have. So one of our main things at 10,000 Degrees is that we have our scholarship. So it opened December 1st and our priority deadline is March 2nd. So if you want to find our scholarship again, it's at 10,000 Degrees /scholarship or 10,000degrees.org/scholarship. This is for students in all of the regions that we serve. As we mentioned, we're in 8, and so our requirements are no GPA or test scores required to apply, no citizenship or documentation status, students pursuing a career in community college and four-year university, and demonstrate financial need. Also how to apply. Our teams are here to support the student every step of the way, but they should be submitting, or we encourage students to submit the FAFSA and the California Dream Act, and that complete the scholarship application through our 10,000 Degrees student portal. So we do have some take-home resources. So remember to fill out the Google form. You will be receiving the slide deck, some digital comparison, the digital comparison tool, the printable comparison tool, also the event recording, and then also some of the common financial aid terms that we discussed today. And so for this year, we do we'll have more train the trainers similar to this one. To register, you can find it at 10,000degrees.org/partners/train the trainers. Again, it's on our website. Is the career programming that will be happening Wednesday, April 3rd, from 9 to 11. Again, some of our recordings are available on our website, and you can also find the Financial Aid 101 as well as Financial Aid Changes. And then we do have some virtual events for students and families, especially around financial aid. So again, this is the our website to register is at 10,000degrees.org/about us/10,000 degrees events. Here you will find our submit workshop that is happening March 6th from 6 to 7:30. And then our next one will be March 27th from 6 to 7:30. Again, we do have recordings available on Financial Aid Info Night, and then also our Financial Aid Offer Letter, that. Okay.
As y'all are thinking of your questions, know that this is the end of the presentation, so feel free to log off, but we'll stay on to be able to answer any questions that may come up.